Thank you, Director Simon. Good morning, President Dufty and Board of Directors. I'm Sylvia Lamb, the Assistant General Manager of Infrastructure Delivery. And to my left is Michael Wong, who's the Project Manager for this Fairgate project. And we have gates in West Oakland. So very cool. Yeah.
Congratulations.
So we'll move to the next slide. There is two slight changes in this deck from what was mailed out. And the next slide will tell you that bottom bullet, we will talk about the next 8 stations today, as promised. But you can read the highlights in the agenda that we're going to go through. So with that, I'm going to just go and say, play the video of our time lapse at West Oakland. So this is the process that we did installing at West Oakland. A couple of things that we did was, one, have a time lapse, and two, you can see in the border there we had some windows so the public could see as this work was being done. That was all the gates coming out. In the background you'll see the sun coming up and going down, and you'll see very few spots where there are not people doing something. So first we're pulling them out, then we're cleaning it, making sure that the electrical's there and the comm, and now we're putting the gates in, and then they're going to be scooted over, which is, for some reason, that's my favorite part. It feels like it's just moving into place. And this is a time lapse over 2 days. And as the sun is setting on this install, the sun is rising on a new day at BART. Can we go to the presentation? Other direction. We're going forward. Next one. All right, so this was a highly choreographed dance to get this here. And I keep saying to you guys that 7 months is a short time. And I know people would have liked them to be done faster, but this was really, we did our due diligence, and this team worked very, very hard to make sure that we could make the commitment. This is the timeline of the last piece of the delivery to West Oakland. And we had this scheduled out by day and by hour. As a matter of fact, as the gates left the Denver and they were on the truck coming here, we were getting updates from the truck driver on where they were in the process. When it hit Reno, everybody was notified, be ready. We're going to be ready in a few hours. And, you know, there were some traffic issues. And again, everybody was on alert to be here. So this is kind of the timeline that went through. And you'll see that the night of Tuesday, December 12th, in that evening was when we started taking the gates out. And then putting new gates in. And I would like to say, I was very excited that technically we were 3 days early in getting these into West Oakland. Next slide, please. Oh, I guess I have the slide thing now, but go ahead. So, you know, there's a lot that goes into this prototype installation. And again, to meet this 7-day, what I'm going to keep 7 month, what I'm going to keep saying is a very tight time frame. The way we did this, and we said, we moved or deferred some of the testing that we would normally do before we even put them into the system. So that testing happened after we got here. We delivered gates both to the lab and West Oakland simultaneously, but each individual gates. And so if I look at that, there are 11 individual gates. Each individual gate had to have 260 plus tests on each individual gate. So that's kind of the effort that's going on. We also put together the monitoring and control, the back office configuration. And we looked at, one of the things we looked at is the audible feedback for visually impaired. If anybody's been out to West Oakland, those gates are really, really quiet. And so we found that some people were concerned that they may not know that the gates are open. So that was something they did. And you may remember that when we did even the temporary gates at West Oakland, we put in special padding there before the temporary gates so that the visually impaired would know exactly where to go. We did a lot of discussions with the station agents to access the monitoring control system and station agent training, as well as looking at the AI sensor programming for the safety zone. And again, that's something very, very important, as you know, especially, is safety, safety, safety. So if we, oh, I keep forgetting that I have this. So this is the hardest slide we had to do, and I'm going to tell you why. There is not enough I can say about how amazing S-Traffic was to work with. These pictures, you can't tell who's S-Traffic and who's BART. They not only took on a BART project, or I would say it differently, they didn't just take on a BART project to get this done. They took on our challenges, they took on our urgency, they took on our commitment, and they took on our passion. And I cannot say enough about how amazing they have been to work with, and that they are now part of the BART family. They have been, as long with us, devoted to the union engagement. We looked at critical and collaborative problem solving, and we'll talk a little bit more about a couple of those items later. There's tons of examples I could give you on how S-Traffic and our team pivoted as we found things out as we developed this. There's innovation solutions, and again, we did a day-by-day, an hour-by-hour schedule to make sure that we made the West Oakland deployment. We also had a lot of help on communicating with local and state elected officials, as well as the outreach in the station. We had the external affairs folks and communication folks helping us for people to know what to expect when the gates got open, help them know when it was going to happen, although we did go a little early. That threw people off a little bit, but that was still better than not. So, this is a little bit about our journey. We came to you in September. I wanted to put this on here because there's, again, 7 months is a short period of time. When we came to you in September, we talked about some of the things that were going on, like the software lock, talking about a potential hardware lock. Between October and the end of December is where really there was so much bulk of work. That's when the gates were actually being built. They were being put together and tested. We went to South Korea to look at the gates themselves. I wanted to see that software lock, to see personally, to be able to say to Michael Jones and Bob Powers that I actually touched the gate and I feel like it won't be pushed through. By the time we got to South Korea, and when we came to you in September, we talked about an option for a software pushback or software closer, and we talked about this idea of potentially having a hardware lock. By the time we got to South Korea, they had a prototype of a hardware lock, and they had perfected the software lock. It was, I can't even tell you the first day when I got there how amazing that was. But we needed to have these check-ins to make sure, and I teased the team, well, half teasing, that those were go, no-go decisions, right? If it wasn't working, I was gonna have to say, we got a problem. So very great work there. Then we keep walking through, as you can see, multidiscipline rehearsals. Again, it's a very choreographed dance. We wanted to make sure our maintenance folks, our station agents, BPD, our team were all ready as we got there. So we walked through at a tabletop over and over and over again to kind of create it into muscle memory by the time it got here. Then we had our team go to Denver, where that's where the kiosk factory is. That's where the gates actually get built and made before they ship out. And so our team was there watching the testing that S-Traffic was doing. And again, a go, no-go's decision. Do I have to warn somebody that we're gonna be late or we're not gonna make it? And luckily, and not luckily, by design, we were on it, and S-Traffic was on it, and we were able to get those gates out of Denver quicker than we expected, or quicker than we planned for, and they were on the way. And like I said, we had hour by hour calls with the truck driver, and very exciting. So we could not have done any of this without the collaboration of so many folks, and including the unions. They were great to work with. They were not only saying, you know, lots of times we go to the union and say, we need your support to do this. We need you to do this then. They were coming in and saying, we can do this. Why don't we do this? How about we get involved earlier? What do you need from us? And it was just amazing. We had tons of meetings, lab site visits, the whole, I can't even tell you, just everybody, we keep saying it was the most important project at BART, and everybody showed that it was their top priority, and I just appreciate it so much. And here's some pictures. So I want to talk about some things that are still going on. Like I said earlier and last time we talked, we cut down that testing time that we would have normally done before deploying. So we're testing now. We did testing in the lab and we did testing before we actually opened up the gates for use, but there's still testing going on. One of the things is some folks have noticed there's a touch of a lag when you tap the card and then before the gates open. I will tell you that I believe our team measured it, and somebody's in the audience that may correct me, but right now it is 1.2 or 1.3 seconds from the time you tap the card to when the door opens. We're trying to reduce that time to make it more quicker, because as the general manager told me himself, when he taps and he walks, then he has to wait at the gate. But anyway, that's being worked on. We'll have more information here in a few weeks. That's daily attention is being put to that. Then I want to talk a little bit about this mechanical lock. There's nothing like it in the world, never been done. So it is attached to the spindle of the door. And I want everybody to know, before we move forward, that spindle cannot be engaged. The doors cannot close unless there's power. So what that means is if there's no power or there's an emergency, everything opens, the lock automatically disengages. And again, safety is our number one thing. We've always said that. That's the way our gates work right now. If there's no power, everything opens. But that locking mechanism, and I will say the software lock is working pretty good right now. We do have one gate at West Oakland that's still boarded off, and that's where we're testing that mechanical lock. But that's a brand new design, not in existence ever before now. So there's a lot of testing that still needs to be done, and we're a few weeks away from being able to unveil that. Our cost estimate for the project, we're still early on, so I'm going to take you to the middle of this slide where we talk about physical percent complete. And some of you may remember my presentation on project controls a while back, which I'd love to talk about. We use an industry standard earned value management to be able to evaluate how a project is doing both financially and schedule. So if you look at that percent complete, you can look at the items and what percent complete they are. And if you get down to the bottom of the project, we're about 14% complete. So the reason we're about 14% complete, even though we've done one station out of 50, is this is a very front-loaded schedule. All this effort that we have to do, we want to get it right up front, and then that way we can take advantage of economy of scale as we roll out the rest of the stations and be able to make up some time and also maybe realize some cost efficiencies as well. In June 2020, we came to you with a budget, and this was the way that cost estimate was developed. We broke down certain specific activities, and you may remember at that time we had tons of different hybrid ideas. Maybe we're going to manufacture and build them ourselves. Maybe we're going to fabricate and install them ourselves. We're going to fabricate, have somebody else install them. And we were going to go out and see if we could find a vendor. At that time, we didn't know we could find a vendor. We found a vendor. Super happy about that. So when we awarded to the vendor in May of 2023, we adjusted some budgets knowing what the vendor is going to do versus us. We're not going to have to go out and manufacture. But as you can see, our cost estimate is still $90 million. And now, if you go to the end, Schedule Performance Index and Cost Performance Index, that tells you how we're doing against the value of the work completed. That's a to-date moment in time evaluation, and you want that to hover around 1. I don't want it to be super high, and I don't want it to be super low. Above 1 means that basically we're getting more value out of the work completed than what it cost us to get there. A number below 1 means that we're getting less value than the cost it took us. And the same for the schedule. I actually don't like that they call it a schedule performance index, because it's really about the planned value, like how much we plan to spend versus a schedule perspective. So based on what we thought we were going to do in May, we had planned to spend about $13 million right now by this point, and we've actually spent the value of the work is $12 million. So you could say we're behind in spending, so maybe we're doing better in our cost, which that's what the cost performance index indicates, or you could say that we're behind schedule, but then you'd have to weigh that against our schedule, and we know that we're right on schedule. So Very pleased with those numbers. And if we look at our schedule, we are still on schedule for what we committed to originally. We're at West Oakland 3 days early. I'm going to keep saying that. I get to say that over and over again. We're still on schedule for the end of 2025 and to talk about the first 8 stations. And now, I wish I had a drum roll. I should have put that in here. Thank you. The next 8 stations. All right. So let's talk about how we got to these stations, shall we? So this was a combination. I'm not going to say combination. We looked at subjective data first. Basically, we talked to BPD and we got what would be your goals, what first 8 stations. We talked to government relations and external affairs, what's your first 8 stations? And we looked at maintenance and engineering and what's your first stations. Then we set that aside. Then we started running different scenarios. We looked at ridership. Who has the most ridership? What stations? Is that the best place to start? I will tell you from an engineering perspective and from my perspective, I want to do the easy stations. Because if I get 10 stations done really fast, I can say I got 10 stations done, right? So that's my focus, but that did not weigh in. So we looked at the complexity, though, of getting it done, right? Do we have multiple arrays so that if we shut down one array, everybody can be using another one? We don't want to disrupt our passengers. We looked at equity. We looked at what's going to be the scenario. If we harden this station, does it make the next stations more difficult? Should we be doing the end stations and then bringing back in? So there's probably 7 or 8 different scenarios that we ran with consultants and other folks. And basically, these kept popping up. In every scenario that we ran, in every model, these kept popping up. And I think some of it is intuitive. I think we all believe that. So I do want to say we're going to go to Civic Center first. So that will be the next station. As we move through, though, you never know what you're going to find till you get out there. And so we want to put alternate stations down there so that we can pivot and move if we need to. But these are the 8 stations. So I know everybody was looking forward to that. And then before I move on, Ken Ho from S-Traffic is here. He's the head of S-Traffic. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to give him a couple of minutes. Ken, if you come up.
Good morning.
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. My name is Ken Cho. I'm the CEO of S-Traffic America. First of all, let me say thank you to Sylvia Lam for this opportunity today to speak to Partis board of members. In April last year, our company met with Bob Powers right after being selected for the Fairgate project. I always remember what Bob said to us. First, we are now a family. Second, a pilot gate will be opened at West Oakland Station by December. This means S-Traffic needed to complete the production on time. From then on, our team members became family. We focused solely on our goals and made every effort to meet the production schedules. Honestly, it was difficult to satisfy all requirements and conditions. Under the careful leadership of Bart's team and the dedication and passion of Eric Cho, S-Traffic's PM, and also of his team's constant hard work, we produced and delivered the gates on time. In other words, we were able to meet the operating schedules. Going forward, we'll continue with the same passion and teamwork. We'll do our best to manufacture all fair gauge and provide the BART the support it needs. S-Traffic will not waver from our promise to continue to do our part as part of BART's family, and always do our best to comply with the previously announced schedule by the end of 2025. Once again, thank you all board members, Bob, Sylvia, and the entire BART family. Thanks so much.
And with that, I would also like to thank a bunch of other folks. We've thanked folks in the past. We've got everybody working, but everybody that's worked on this. And there's a couple that I'd like to add. One, I want to thank the board of directors. You've given us suggestions. You've given us nudges. You've helped us. You've asked questions, the right questions, and you've supported us. So I want to say that I really appreciate that. And if you wouldn't mind indulging me, many of our core team, especially that worked on West Oakland, are in the audience, and I would like to take a moment to have them stand.
We're just going to ask you to do that. So
Stand up.
And if there are folks from communications, maybe you guys could stand a little longer so we can get a picture of you all standing. Stand up again, please. Because as with when the new, I should say, the second generation train cars came on, we knew that the folks who really made that project move forward were in all parts of our system. Some folks we've never seen, some folks the public has never seen. This amazing, huge feat in BART's next generation of service. We know that there are hundreds of folks from both the private sector, our contractors, and our BART teams, and folks from finance and legal, and of course the engineering team who have been round the clock working on this work for years. So I'm hoping that you all, one, we can see your faces, that Alicia's getting her digital camera ready, but we are so thankful for those of you all, and I know our board members have been to West Oakland. There are really folks there around the clock, and we're so thankful for the administration, again, the construction folks, janitorial, police. You all have done a fantastic job also with fielding the many questions and concerns from our writers, and I know they've come directly to you and others on the team, and congratulations. Thank you all so much. Another round of applause. Before we conclude the presentation, Bob, did you want to add anything or anyone else from the executive team?
Good day. Yeah, it is. Thank you, President Dufty and Director Simon. I just want to say two things. One, I want to thank Ken and the S-Traffic team. I remember that meeting right after the BART board awarded this contract to S-Traffic, and I welcomed you to the BART family, number one, and we committed to a schedule, and you've delivered on both of them. And if I could say anything, S-Traffic is the kind of contractor that BART wants to be in business with. And I just hope and look forward to a long future working with S-Traffic. So thank you for that. And then the second thing I'd like to say, Director Dufty and Director Simon and the BART board, I know we've thanked a lot of folks on the screen and Sylvia's last slide there. But a special thanks from me to you, Sylvia. You have navigated this. It hasn't been easy. I haven't given you a break on anything, whether it's schedule or anything like that. And you have persevered through this. You have navigated with grace, and you've come through. And we have a prototype pilot up at West Oakland, and we're migrating to the next 8. And so I just thank whoever I need to thank that you're in BART's life and part of BART's family. So thank you.